From shamans to scientists, mediums to masterminds, cannabis to LSD. Spark joy, spark curiosity, and spark a joint. Because you're listening to Budding Mind. Budding Mind. Aloha, friends, and welcome to the Budding Mind podcast. I'm Brooke Bergstaller, and today's guest is Santiago Tarditi. He's a conscious entrepreneur in every sense of the word. Santi has carved out a unique life path for himself as a cannabis journalist, plant medicine advocate, vegan activist, and content creator. His presence oozes sustainability, but like in a chic way. His approach is accessible, inviting, and frankly, inspiring. One look at Santi's Instagram, and you'll either want to be his best friend or be more like him. He and his wife, Valeria, recently moved to Mexico to explore a life that brings them closer in relationship to the earth. So close that they actually created the world's first zero-waste CBD brand, Intu. Enjoy our conversation, friends, and here is the interview. You ready to get this party started?
I'm ready.
Okay, cool beans. Well, also, thank you so much for doing this. I'm excited to get some face-to-face time. We've been digital homies for a while.
Right, yeah. Although I did interview you over video a while ago, remember?
Was it video or was it a phone? I was trying to think of that.
No, I think we did video. I didn't end up using the video, but that was the first time we interacted face to face.
Okay, so we did have some real time. All right, cool beans. Well, let's kick things off. Of course, I've read a myriad of interviews with you from other folks on the internet, but I want to know for myself. So you are a political scientist and a journalist and a published author and a cannabis advocate and a vegan activist and all of these things, but you are also a conscious entrepreneur. And I would love to hear what that means for you in your words and what kind of impact you hope that title has in the work that you do in the world.
Well, the conscious, I think we should divide that title, because conscious and consciousness is something that I like to embed in everything I do daily, whether it is making a cup of coffee in the morning or reading a book or going for a walk or even launching and starting a business. So just being very mindful, being very present is very important in my daily activities. And then the entrepreneurial part really comes down to Intu, which is a CBD company that I launched with my wife, Valeria Hinojosa, about 2 years ago. We share a lot of common objectives in life and our appreciation for nature. And to be honest, she had more experience in entrepreneurship. She used to have a jewelry line, and she used to work in banking. I've always been a writer, a traveler, a journalist. So I didn't do a lot of entrepreneurship or numbers. That's really something that is a little outside of my comfort zone. So I have to admit that Valeria was an integral part, a very important part of launching this conscious entrepreneurship, the business, the CBD company that we've had for a while now. And I think what we tried to do in the beginning, seeing that CBD was becoming so popular and it's fairly easy to launch a CBD company nowadays. You find them everywhere in gas stations and pharmacies, whatever, souvenir shops. So we really wanted to pay attention to each and every one of the steps that were required to launch a company. So it's bringing that presence, that being very, very present, being in the moment, to each of the steps of building a company, from where do you source the cannabis flower, what lab are you going to work with, are we sure that this is completely organic and natural and pesticide-free cannabis. So we have to go to a lab to make sure about that. All the way to the packaging. You know, if you see our packaging and our bottles, they're entirely plastic-free. We did launch with a dropper, and then we went back to our conscious aspect that was like, wait, we did that a little too fast. Let's go back. Let's
Wow.
how can we make this better? And this was, I think, 2 months after we launched. You know, we had this idea brewing for a while, and I think there was that's where we did it a little bit unconsciously. We said, okay, let's just launch this business, and then we can adjust along the way. And that adjustment came in the form of plastic free. We redesigned the bottle. We changed the plastic cap for a cork cap. The bottles come sealed with vegan wax, and it has this little burlap cord which you pull, and
It's so beautiful. It's a whole experience.
well, you have experienced it firsthand, so I'd love to hear what you thought about it. Did you feel
Yeah.
the aspect of it?
Well, I was actually hoping it's normally on my desk right in front of me. So I was hoping that I'd be able to show everyone. But I'm so glad that we started off talking about Intu because it is, yeah, it's the world's first plastic free CBD. It's environmentally friendly. It is so beautifully, it just feels like hand touched every part of the product itself. And for someone who really loves like locally grown and organic products and brands, that really resonated with me. I loved it. And also I literally wrote this down. So you have a bunch of quotes and like messaging on the box that the CBD actually comes in. And there's a quote that says, "We're the ones who've always taken a leap of faith, diving into the mysterious, knowing that even if nothing is under control, everything will be just fine." And I cut that out from the cardboard box packaging and put it on my little vision board because it was so touching. And it really had both of your voices imprinted into it. So I thought that was really special and meaningful. And of course, a lot of what we see in the cannabis space is um I had read something else that you had said that your greatest wish for the future of cannabis is for the industry to actually slow down. And I think it's such a, especially for someone who writes about weed and like your career path is like partly dependent on this industry thriving, for you to actually authentically say like, I'm okay if we pump the brakes a little bit, I think was really telling and enlightening to the kind of human that you are. And I feel like Into is a product that really reflects that of like, you don't need to have 17 different CBDs that you got from Walmart or from the grocery store or whatever. Like you can have this one beautiful glass bottle that you can reuse, and you can know that every aspect of it was created thoughtfully and intentionally, and maybe not totally at first, because that's where the entrepreneurship clearly
Totally.
was taking over for you guys. But at the end of the day, to be in the cannabis space with a mission that is like aligned through and through is very, very rare. And so maybe we could talk about that a little bit as well, since you guys did enter into this industry, you are participating. Like what kind of, because maybe the average consumer doesn't know that like packaging is a hell of a bitch when it comes to creating a cannabis product. And if you are trying to make something truly sustainable, it's almost impossible when you're creating something new. So what kind of like, I don't know, moral instances or issues were you guys coming up against, and how did you ultimately overcome to deliver this to the world?
I mean, I think you summarized it pretty well. We wanted people to be mindful consumers, not just of our CBD, but any product, any service out there. You know, it's very easy to grab your phone, go online, buy a bunch of things with just a few taps, and then, forget about it. Most people don't care where it comes from, where it's sourced, who makes it, all the steps it takes to get to you. So we wanted to remind the consumer that, this isn't just another CBD oil. It's on higher end of the spectrum in terms of pricing, in terms of design, in terms of the bottle, in terms of the energy we put into it. There is no factory that does everything for us. We literally take the bottles and cover the top of them with the wax seal in our own home, one by one, making sure that the burlap cord is properly placed. These So we wanted to transmit that. And Valeria, my wife, is a professional in this sort of things. I'm a little bit more clumsy, so I help carry the heavy boxes. But when she does this, it becomes like this Zen moment where she's completely focused and centered on what she's doing. And all around what's going on around us is non-important. We're just focused in that moment. And so we wanted to transmit that feeling by reminding people to take time to open the bottle, to be very careful. And that has presented some problems to us, because occasionally we get a message from a customer saying, hey, you know what? I tried to open your bottle and I screwed up and now the cork is broken and whatever. It's like, well, did you actually take time to focus on this process? And this goes beyond just Intu. That's our physical product that serves as a tool. The same way maybe a sound bowl can help people tune into their present moment, or to ground on their yoga mats or whatever. It's just another tool, and of course is that technology that can then help you go even deeper. So it's part of this like multi-stage process that brings you to the present moment.
Yeah. And into the other half of the product you created, Intu Rituals, like you guys are trying to infuse and encourage people to have a ritual around this plant. And at least for me personally, like I largely attribute cannabis to opening my eyes to how I can imbue a more conscious relationship with other aspects of my existence and lifestyle, from my food to the shampoos that I use, the perfumes that I wear, all of this. So how has that been present for you, and how has your relationship with plants in general helped you to slow down and come home to this lifestyle that you are embodying right now?
Yeah, the ceremonial aspect of consuming plants helps us connect to nature, and remember that, oh, this isn't just a liquid in a bottle. This was once a seed. The seed had to be in the right environment with enough care and attention and control and passion and love and all these things that ended up creating a plant that then, through its own genetics, through its own essence, helps us create a sort of unique what would I call it, like a unique state of mind with a spiritual component to it as well. It's a reminder that we cannot take this planet for granted. I think that a lot of us, or at least in my case, I used to go for many years to a supermarket and buy a couple of things and just eat the apple and throw it away. And then I started realizing that, hey, this took time. This apple, first of all, we had to be on a planet that was at a precise distance from the sun for it to develop life and a series of elements for this apple to grow. Then the people that interacted with it and dedicated time and their attention, their energy to it. And I started eating apples more slowly. I think that's how it all began, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. And then I started realizing that, wow, actually I can eat an apple in an hour and enjoy every single aspect of it. And then, well, what happens with, my house plant in the back? Like, can I look at the leaves? Can I, take the weeds out? Can I add more, potassium to it and see how it changes? And you start developing this connection with the plants and in turn with nature as well. And I guess with cannabis, going back a little bit to what you were saying about me asking people in the industry to slow down, even though I do rely upon a lot of consumers buying our products, is that things have gotten out of hand. We've industrialized everything, the food we eat, the entertainment we consume, the trips we go on. And I believe, not only do I believe, because it's a fact, it's unsustainable. We cannot continue to live this way. So my reminder whenever I interact with plants is, they went through a process. This plant, this flower, this fruit had to go through a series of challenges, opportunities, changes. I should do the same. I am part of nature, and in that way, I should follow the plant's process.
And how do you combat, if you are talking about just like the day-to-day excess? Like, I really do think that if you look at most people on earth, or at least in America, like, we are living a life of excess. We don't know that. We don't realize that. Most people don't understand that. But just like the level of access and abundance around us is like, it's superfluous. Like, most of us have more than enough in our life. And I do believe that the way to live with the most integrity is living a life where you just take enough. Like, you just have enough for you to make you happy, and then you give from there. Now, I'm not perfect in any means. I'm talking about the aspiration over here. But how do you combat like the normalcy of, like, I don't know. I guess I only know the life that you live through like the lens of what I know about you through social media and things like that. And I know that you have this amazing partner, your wife, Valeria, who likely has made it easy, like that partnership, you both having the same interests and you both having the desire to move at this slow pace, really encouraging each other to be able to live that life a little more easily. So yeah, beyond the partnership, I guess I'm wondering, how do you maintain this level of connection and awareness? And when did that start to happen for you? Like, were you just born like, oh yeah, I love the butterfly and I'll just talk to it for 3 hours? Or sometimes are you like scrolling on Instagram, like, oh my God, I'm panic scrolling. I need to calm down and go look at my plants.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned a lot of very interesting points. One of them is this idea of perfection. None of us is perfect, and even though you might see us on Instagram like living this slow life and so on and so forth, we do have to go through a lot of hurdles, a lot of taking steps back and reassessing where we are and what we're doing. And part of, I guess, our journey has taught us that we were blessed from a very young age, in many ways. We had access to incredible education, to trips and travel, to we're born in Latin America. My wife is from Bolivia. I'm from Colombia. We speak 3 languages. That alone sets. I mean, I'm trying to say that in the beginning we didn't really acknowledge how blessed we were, and then along the way, through just interacting with people from all walks of life, we started realizing that it's not about the car you drive or the clothes you wear. It's really about those commonalities that make us human, the way you can interact with someone else just through a smile or through kindness. And that's really what matters in the end. It's a process, of course. I wouldn't be saying these words 5 years ago, and I think that's kind of where it all started, and a lot of things began to align. I went vegan. I was doing a lot of yoga. I was consuming cannabis in a more ceremonial, ritualistic way. Um, yeah, I don't know. There were so many things that starting just
There was an
falling.
evolution.
It was definitely, yeah, it wasn't there wasn't an epiphany that, one day I woke up and was like, oh, I'm gonna quit eating meat and I'm gonna start talking to plants and whatever. But the more access we had to the world, the more we realized that, it's the small things in life, the details, the interconnectedness that is really rewarding.
Hmm. And it's not typically necessarily like a masculine attribute to, I mean, yeah, like the way that
Definitely
you're.
Latin America and Latin.
Yeah,
I'll
so tell me a little bit about that. Like, does your family think you're crazy? Are you influencing them in any way?
I think as a family, we've all realized that things are changing drastically in the planet, not just environmentally speaking, but in terms of social justice as well, in terms of inequality. And luckily, from a very young age, my father, also a journalist and an academic, he tried really hard to show us that the world wasn't just the bubble we were living in, and he would educate us through books and documentaries, but also through interacting with different different kinds of experiences in this planet. So we've kind of all moved at the same rhythm. And most of my family, my core, my nuclear family is vegan and has been vegan for the past 4 years or so. So in that sense, we've always had a very good interaction. But I did have a lot of clashes with my former friends in Colombia. Like, unfortunately, I'm not as close to them as I once used to be, because my change in lifestyle
Mm,
also presented a lot of drastic measures in terms of like the way we view society in Colombia. So quitting meat or drinking fewer alcohol, or preferring cannabis, which is still seen as the plant of the delinquents and the lazy people and whatnot. So that kind of shook
mm,
my social foundation in Colombia. I did leave a lot of people behind. I kept those who understood and supported me, male friends, female friends, family members with who I had to, explain veganism and to this people don't understand it. But I guess part of that process also involves being compassionate and very empathetic towards those who don't understand your lifestyle, and
mm,
doing the best to explain it, but not force it into their mindsets, which I did for a while. As my first year as a vegan, I was very militant, because I mean, it hurts me. Like, I don't like seeing animals dying, just to please a few pallets here and there. Well, not a few, like billions of pallets here
yeah.
and and especially seeing that whole industry in particular is causing a lot of the problems that we're facing today in terms of CO2 production and exploitation and land and water and resource use. So I was very passionate about trying to shake people and wake them up and be like, don't eat this, don't eat that, look at what you're wearing and what you're doing, and so on and so forth. And then I thought to myself, you know what, like, everyone has their own journey. And I wasn't a vegan 5 years ago, and I would eat copious amounts of meat. So I'm no one to be judging or putting pressure on people. But I did learn that you have to start creating a support group with people who don't have to be like you. Most of my friends, my close small group of friends, none of them are vegan. Occasionally, they might eat a vegan meal here or there or whatever. And some of them don't consume cannabis. And, a lot of them work in banking or the oil industry or whatever. And I still share my insights with them and they give me their feedback, but they support me in a way. So
Mm.
I think, you know, it's it's a process that will make you rethink who you are as a person, but also the environment you're in. And that's one of the reasons why we're now in Mexico. We moved to Mexico from Miami. I left Colombia 15 years ago, and I lived in Europe and in the East Coast, in New York, and in LA, and backpacked all over Asia and whatnot. And then I think that what we realized was, all these places are amazing and they have amazing restaurants and amazing bars and super cool people and whatnot. But truly, what both Valeria and I appreciated was the connection to nature. We live in a small town in the mountains in Mexico, and being surrounded by like-minded people. Not a lot of people ditch their American
Ditch
view
Miami for Mexico.
or trying their luck in the mountainside of Mexico.
I mean, it's beyond cool. Like, it expands beyond my comprehension that you guys were just like, we don't need to know anyone. We're just gonna throw our spaghetti at the wall and see if it sticks. And it seems like it's sticking. And both sides of what you were describing, like, yes, having community and like-minded people. And I think that does happen organically as you stay on the path of becoming your highest self, whatever that ends up looking like. But there's also a part of the path where, in dissolving the ego, we can tend to like have really expansive egos and try to force everyone around us to care about the same things we do. And I too have found that like the path of least resistance is the best path, and just being yourself and being authentic in the way you live your life and what you do care and believe in will somehow subconsciously ripple out into all those different types of eclectic humans that exist in your orbit. The people who are in the oil industry or the people who still eat meat. There's some like undercurrent of influence that is really potent and powerful, and you don't necessarily need to shove things down people's throats. But one thing that I wanted to know about it, whether in Mexico or in Miami, is what are the rituals, what are the aspects of your daily life that really do bring that kind of enhancement that you've been seeking?
They change, of course, depending on the location. In Miami, my ritual was waking up and going for a run on the beach. I would run for, I don't know, half an hour, ever, and then just sit down and maybe meditate or just look at the ocean and take some time to myself to really appreciate life and everything around me. And then I guess I would start my day, and maybe towards the end of it, I would roll a joint and then engage in deeper discussions with friends, family, with Valeria, my wife, of course. Um, Being with our dogs, we currently have 3 dogs. You might see a few of them walking here and there. I think that interspecies communication, when you really take time to communicate with them, you I mean, you have this strong link through just looking into their eyes. And I don't know if this is making things up or not, but I think you start developing this language,
Oh, you're
whether
speaking to me.
right, right.
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
seen you with your dog, and clearly you also have like a very strong relationship. So I
That's so beautiful.
there are different rituals that have accompanied my life. In Miami, it was this running on the beach in the morning, and here in Mexico, it's going out and checking on the plants. It's really incredible. Like we built our little organic garden, like nothing fancy, using old bricks and just hitting the ground, and we've planted all sorts of things, and just waking up, making coffee, taking time for the French press to brew the coffee properly, try not to look at my phone, try to meditate a little bit, stretch, move. and just walk barefoot and look at the overnight developments in my garden or in my plants is amazing.
I
And
can't even. Yeah. So
that's
cool.
where the world just shuts down. Like I'm not thinking about anything else except the new leaf on this, pinto bean plant that I put in the soil 2 months ago. It's like, wow, look at this leaf. This is a new development. What's going on? What now? What can I do better? And
Thrilling. Oh my gosh, we sprouted a new leaf. But really, I totally feel that. And what about when it comes to cannabis? Like, okay, so you've lived in Colombia, you lived in the States, you live in Mexico. Sounds like you've lived in Europe and other places too. Like everywhere that I just mentioned has a different approach to cannabis reform. Where do you think is doing it right? Mexico?
I mean, I think each scenario presented a different opportunity to connect with the plant. No, here in Mexico, I've learned to enjoy it throughout the day, which is something that I didn't used to do in the States. I think in the States it was more of a wind down moment, similarly to how people crack open a bottle of wine and pour a glass. It's like, okay, the day is over. I can disconnect. I can turn on the TV or pick up a book or whatever. I think that's how I used it. Here, I feel because everything is slower, I can use it throughout the day, and I also use it when I spend too much time just going around and walking barefoot and imbibing everything around me and talking to the plants. I take a puff and it's like, okay, I have to go back to work, for example. So I to work to like recenter my attention. Regardless of the way I use it, it's that ritual, that moment, where I take out my tray, my special grinder, my jar of cannabis. I pick the right bud. I look at it. I check whether, does it have mold? Does it have fungus? Does it have, tiny bits of whatever, dirt? And I make sure that, it's a good flower, and then I grind it. I roll it in a joint. Like it can take me, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes to roll a joint, and then another hour to smoke it, and not all at once, just take a few puffs, relax, reconnect, then do it all over again. Yeah, I think there isn't one ceremony or one ritual that can work for all the different environments, but I do think that taking time to acknowledge that what you are doing, what you're about to do, and what you just did is an integral part of who you are as a person.
Oh, wow. Speaking my language. I love that so much. Even as of late, I'm really trying to, when I smoke cannabis, I just like lift my joint and I just say like, thank you. Thank you to the cannabis gods.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've been smoking spliffs a lot lately. Thank you, Mapacho. Thank you, grandfather. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as I continue to learn more about how to connect with plants and learn more about the history of these plants, it informs my prayer. But just, I think the simple acknowledgement helps to create a better experience altogether.
And not spiritual terms, we also have to be very mindful that a lot of people are going to jail for this.
Yes.
Like we're one of the few people in the world who can actually post on Instagram, a picture of ourselves with a joint in our hand or whatever, and speak about it and be on podcasts and whatnot. So there's also a responsibility that
Yes.
we carry in being like, look, I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I also acknowledge that there's a lot of work that needs to be done for a lot of people to be able to enjoy this moment.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. It is sheesh, man. It's so fascinating to think about just the evolution of the cannabis industry and how this like mainstay of people being in jail for the plant is one thing that hasn't evolved. Everything outside prison walls is moving so quickly, and there's so many people whose lives have been completely halted. So thank you for bringing that up as always, and I know that you speak so eloquently about that. So when you are reporting on cannabis, which is something that you're doing right now, yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
still writing? Cool. What
So
is your favorite thing to talk about? Like, what are, I know that you really focus a lot on the social justice aspects, but beyond that, or including that, what do you love to share with people?
I would like to report more on micro growers, small communities. For example, I heard about this indigenous community here in Mexico in the Oaxaca Sierra, who have been growing cannabis for many, many decades. And they're supplying all sorts of consumers, and they're also waiting. Oaxaca is very advanced in terms of their approach to cannabis and entheogens in general and other plants. Um, and they're waiting for the moment where they can do this freely and legally and whatnot. So I would like to report more, not just in terms of the community here in Mexico, but across Latin America. Uh,
Mhm.
it's very important that this part of the world has suffered the war on drugs greatly. Colombia has been wasting thousands of lives, billions of dollars in fighting a war, not just with cannabis, but also with the coca leaf and with cocaine and with other drugs that clearly hasn't worked. So being able to pinpoint who are the communities, the growers, the people behind this project helps us create those human bonds to the substances that we are consuming and realizing like, wow, this is more than just getting high. This is supporting this abuela in Oaxaca who has to feed a family of five, and has been doing this as heritage because she was taught to grow, corn and beans, but also cannabis and poppy, and so like it's not just like, oh, this is the final product. There's a whole aspect behind, and there's a human component to it.
Oh gosh. So beautiful. And so how does this expand for you into the newly emerging plant medicine space? Because I know that as at least a personality on the internet, you're speaking about plant medicines and things like this and advocating for them, of course. But as we see this new industry continue to develop at such an extremely rapid pace, how do you, as a participant, balance the scales of like entrepreneurship in the space and also like integrity? Um, it's hard, right? It's hard for me.
I mean, the first part is to honor nature. Again, recognize that this is a miracle. What starts off as a seed, what starts off as a spore, what starts off as a sprout can then enhance our consciousness in many ways. So it's always honoring nature and understanding that it took a lot of energy for that to be presented to you, and so you have to acknowledge that. The communities that have been working with these plants have to come first. I think it's great that there's a whole psychedelic industry that's growing. uh, I haven't really seen a lot of integration between the VC funds and the local communities in the Amazon. I think that should be developed even further, and not in a way where it's just like, oh, we believe in indigenous communities. 10% of our earnings go to, but like really engage a dialectic discourse with the communities and say, okay, how can we as a species collaborate through this common technology that benefits both you and I, how can we work together to improve our lives and the lives of others and our surroundings? How can we um, grow the ayahuasca vine, the Banisteriopsis capi, in a way that isn't exploitative? How can we help the indigenous communities in Oaxaca recognize the value of women? Maria Sabina for a long time wasn't even a popular name, and
Not at
it's
all.
thanks to her, and through a very cheeky Gordon Wasson, who kind of went and took notes without her permission. But it was thanks to her that we were able to know fungi, psychedelic fungi, outside of these small realms. So I think we have to build those stronger bonds, and also realize that these plants, these entheogens, fungi, whatever, are great for us, but they also, or our consumption of them, also generate an impact on their ecosystems. And we're seeing it today with the bufo toad, the toad that everyone is consuming now, the 5-MeO DMT, Bufo alvarius, is going extinct in the Sonoran Desert, because once again we let capitalism take over, we let overconsumption take over, we forget about, I think we're past sustainability, to be honest. I think we should be thinking about regeneration. Okay, how can I provide something in exchange to the Sonoran toad? As crazy as it might sound, but this toad, this amphibian, is giving me a life-changing experience. How can I give back to it and the people working with it and the surroundings where it lives?
And it's all very idealistic. It is, because I think, like, especially when it comes to psychedelics or any kind of substance that is enabling people to expand their perspectives, there's just two sides of it. There will be the pathway of people that really honor and cherish these plants and give back and have communion and relationship in a really powerful way that lends to expansion. And there will also be capitalism and pharmaceutical involvement, and it's already happening. So to say that won't exist, I don't mean to be a pessimist. It's just like, it is the reality, at least that I'm witnessing. So I guess something that I hope for people is that the individual experiences will lend to individual impact, and that will somehow be cumulative enough to be enough to be worthy of these substances and to be worthy of a better earth. And when you were talking about the regeneration or the giving back to plants, I'm reading a very great book. I feel like you would love it if you haven't read it. It's called Plant Spirit Medicine. And the author talks about how there was an indigenous man. I don't know where he was. He got sick. He was very, 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 very sick. And so the shaman came to him, figured out what was wrong. And she was like, oh, there's a bay tree. There's a bay tree like 40 miles away from us that someone like cut down too many of the leaves or something like that. And that tree, that mistreatment of that tree, has rippled out into this illness for this man. And it sounds so far out, and it is, because that's not the way that we live today. But that synergy, I just think, is like, that's the definition of magic. And that is like, wow, so if someone cut that tree over there, or if I do something wrong to the planet, if I am not a conscious individual, that is a domino effect for the lives of people that I might not even know. And if we can just start like pulling that knowledge back inside and living from that really intentional space, maybe we can fix a couple of things, but maybe not the whole picture. Who knows, Santi?
I think it's still worth a try.
Yeah, of course, right?
I mean, if you can, we have a very short time in this world. Nothing is guaranteed. Like, why wouldn't we try to do the best we can?
Well, I think some people are like kind of hopeless is really the word, or like, what does it matter for me to recycle? What does it matter? Like the damage has already been done. So I'm just going to keep living my life the way I want to. And that truly is just a selfish perspective. But never doubt that a group of small, thoughtful, concerned citizens can change the world, because indeed it is the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead.
So,
So one last question for you. I sent this one to you. This is the big budding mind cue. Oh, we love to ask it. It's a tangible nugget for our listeners to learn more about you, and maybe a source of where you've learned some of these things from. But what is a book, a movie, a quote, a moment, a country you visited, a story you read, whatever, that has expanded or changed your mind?
I think a book that really impacted me was "We Are the Weather" by Jonathan Safran Foer. Not only is he a great writer, but he also uses a lot of hard data, hard facts to show you how we actually are the weather, how we can, create these ripple effects that you were talking about by chopping down one tree, by building a skyscraper too tall, by, all sorts of exploitative measures that we apply as humans on a daily basis. That do I have to complete all the categories?
Oh, no. That's great. I've never even heard of this book. That's phenomenal.
A great book, and he's an amazing writer. But I mean, documentary. Yesterday we were talking about the Werner Herzog documentaries. I love all of them. Man on Wire is a great documentary. I mean, there's so much traveling. Traveling has been an eye-opening experience. I've been very lucky to have visited 57 countries.
Wow, because an article that I read by you, you had been to 43. So that means you tacked on 14 more. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I added a few more, but I don't know. I think I took 6 months to backpack across Southeast Asia, and just being free from all sorts of commitments or requirements or material attachments just helped me connect with people, once again on these very basic terms, where a smile, a please, a thank you, a bow would open a lot of doors and granted me a lot of wonderful experiences. But yeah, the quote, I'll have to think about the quote. There are so
you've
many.
already met your quota for the question. Don't you worry about it. Although
Good.
we could keep going, because I do love every time I ask this question and someone gives a book, I immediately go and buy it. So, and I'm looking at a stack of about 14 books I haven't read yet. So there you go. I gotta stop asking the question. Oh, well, thank you so much for your time, and for just connecting and sharing more about your beautiful perspectives, and the lens through which you look at the world is really, it's very touching. And so I'm grateful to know you and to be able to learn from you, and continue to see your work in this world.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, Brooke. I think it's amazing that these spaces are more prevalent and that we can talk about these topics that used to be so taboo. So once again, lots of gratitude to you for setting up the stage.
Yay! Everyone check out Intu Rituals. You can find Santi on Instagram, of course, SR Tarditi. There we go. And that'll be in the link to the show notes. Have a beautiful day, everyone, and I love you. Woo! Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks.
Wow.
Thanks to
That was really awesome. Yeah, super cool. I will, of course, I'll send you all the who nanny, the spangle dangles. I make little clips and stuff. You don't have to post them, but I'll send them your way.
No, post them on Intu and on my personal account. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, congratulations for the beautiful life that you're living. And I know that there's a full package of human existence there, but yeah, it's good to know you. It's good to know you, my friend.
Likewise, let us know if you're ever in town. Well,
Yeah, where do you live in Mexico?
we're we're like an hour and 40 minutes away from Mexico City. We're close to Cuernavaca, but like nobody really goes to Cuernavaca. But yeah, next time you're in Mexico City, let us know. We can meet there. Or if you guys want to come here and stay a couple nights, we'd love to host you.
Damn, love that. Be careful what you put out into the world. Okay. All right. Well, have a beautiful rest of your Tuesday. Much love and all the things. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Brooke. Have a good one.
Bye, Santi.
Oh.